Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Got a few work-related stories from my hometown I can post. Be me. I'm a 20-year-old college student. Work in a shitty gas station booth-type place attached to a supermarket. The booth itself is located a bit off-site on the other side of this huge parking lot. But the supermarket owns it. The booth faces the store with a huge wooded area directly behind it. The door to the booth faces left into the woods. The window in the booth is bulletproof, but only covers the front so you can't see directly to the left or right of the booth. I had been working there for a few months when this nasty storm hit the area. It rained so bad you could barely see 10 feet in front of you, flooding all over the place. But the supermarket refuses to close the booth down. So I show up for my 5 to 11 p.m. shift in the pouring rain. 3 hours into my shift, the power goes out due to the storm, which by this point has gotten downright apocalyptic. It's pitch black out there, and the rain is coming down hard, so I decide to sit tight in the booth while I wait for a manager or something. Phones are down, can't call into the store. Nobody is buying gas either. So I decide to start doing my booth chores, cleaning the counter, counting cigarettes, tidying the drawer, etc. Pick-related is kind of what the booth looks like minus the windows on the sides, and surrounded by woods instead of more parking lot. Now, this next part will require a bit of background information, so bear with me. The booth is supposed to be locked at all times, but one of the new hires managed to break the key off inside the lock. So one of our managers broke the lock so we could get back in. And that lock still hadn't been replaced, but we were told to pretend the door was still locked. The door still had a deadbolt, but I found it annoying to fool with, so I mostly just left it unlocked. So whenever I'd go to open the door, I'd pretend to put the key in and make an audible KCH sound like a lock being opened. Back to me sitting in the unlocked booth in the pitch black pouring rain, in the middle of chores when I hear something outside the booth, like a muffled sort of splashing sound. I put my ear against the door. I can hear what is clearly someone walking around the booth in the rain before stopping in front of the door. Before I can kick myself for not locking it, I hear KCH, followed by the most dreadfully quiet couple of seconds, waiting to die for some serial killer or crackhead, when suddenly the footsteps start splashing back into the woods. Quietly shit self and lock the deadbolt while I wait out my shift. Could occasionally hear the footsteps outside, but it never tried to open the door. The manager drives over in a truck to close me out for the night. Kinda new there, so I don't want to seem like a coward. Never mention it to him or anyone else at the store. A few months later, this kid I was training told me he'd heard footsteps real late one night during a storm. Thankfully, the lock has been replaced since then. Tell him it was nothing, but not to open the door if he thinks there is something out there. Apologies for the delay between stories. I don't have these typed up in advance. This'll be the last one for tonight. Might be back tomorrow to share more. Still working at the booth. Second oldest person working out there. So sometimes get calls from younger co-workers when they fuck up. On this particular night I was off but got a call from this high schooler who I'll call Rhea. It's 9:30 p.m. She's hysterical, saying something about her trainee being missing. Lots of sobbing. Try to get her to call the cops or something if he's been kidnapped. But she insists she can't call the cops because they wouldn't believe her. Ask her why she hasn't told a manager. She cries some more and says they wouldn't understand. Agree to go out there and calm her down. Get dressed, go out there, and park next to the booth. No customers, and the girl is just standing in the booth staring at the door. She spots me, opens the door, and starts sobbing, telling me to hurry inside. Eventually, get her to stop crying long enough to tell me what happened. Apparently, she was training this new guy, Matt. He was an older guy about my age. Said the dude felt off, like a robot or something. Kept staring at her all dazed. Several times, he just stopped talking mid-sentence. Ignored her attempts to address it. She's getting real uncomfortable and is about to call into the store about him, when he starts sort of humming. She described it as kind of like someone attempting to imitate a purring cat, like they were breathing heavily and buzzing at the same time. So she reaches for the phone. He reacts by grabbing her hand and just staring at her. She's bawling at this point, begging him to stop. He lets go of her hand and then opens the door. Sprints off into the woods out of sight. Said he came back a few minutes before I got there and asked to be let back in. But she refused, so he just ran back into the woods. I think she was being dramatic or lying to save face. Regardless, that story was pretty fucked, and we needed to call the cops or something at least. So, I tell her we're going to call the cops, and then we're going to walk into the store and wait for them. She doesn't want to go outside, says she can almost feel him waiting out there. Say fuck it. She can stay in the booth and call the cops while I make sure the tree line is clear. Take this shitty flashlight I stashed out there after the first story. Go outside, start scanning the tree line. Suddenly, the hair stands up on the back of my neck as I hear the humming noise. It sounds kind of like cicadas mixed with breathing. Look inside the booth. She's curled up in the chair, staring to my left. Book it back inside, but I left the keys with her, and she's not getting up to let me in. Pounding on the door while screaming at her to let me in. Humming stops abruptly as I hear something behind me and to the left. It's Matt. He's standing just on the edge of the trees. Panic intensifies. At this point, Rhea finally lets me into the booth, and I immediately deadbolt the fucker. Matt is outside asking to be let back in. Says he's sorry and that he got a bit nervous back there. He's circling the booth while he does so, just repeating the same couple of excuses and asking to come in. This continues for maybe 5 minutes before the cops arrive, and Matt just bolts into the woods. End up having to explain to both the cops and our manager what happened, leaving out the weird humming. As far as I know, Matt never showed up, so they fired him, and Rhea quit eventually, and that was the end of it. Was never particularly close with Rhea since she was still in high school when I was in college, so we never talked about what happened. So, I have no idea what happened that night. Maybe Matt was just some doped up junkie who could make some really weird noises.
Worked night shift alone at a gas station. Early 50 seconds, man wearing all black and sunglasses at night comes in and is in the middle of a conversation. I assume he's on the phone or has a wireless headset, but he's just talking out loud, with pauses as if he's listening to the other speaker. He wanders around for a while and comes up to the counter to buy some smokes. I sell them to him and he lingers for a bit before asking me,
"Whose side are you on, devil or angel?"
I answered I'm feeling a little devilish, and then his entire mood shifts and he physically shifts himself as if he's about to get in a fight with me. I had another customer to take care of, so I ignore him, but not before he told me.
"You shouldn't have said that."
Before walking back outside, he paced around the gas pumps for a while until some other customers shooed him away. Still think about him sometimes.
I was 21 last summer. First month of night shift. Browse X while at work and chill, deal with some bro customers but generally do nothing at work. Around 2 a.m. A scruffy looking dude enters the store. Looks like a bum, I don't judge though. He makes a large coffee, then heads into the bathroom. I felt a little uncomfortable with him there. I always do when guys like that come around, but I just chill and lose track of time. After a little while later, a few kids enter the store, carrying a backpack and giggling. Obviously going to smoke pot in the bathroom. Whatever.jpg. Totally forgotten about the guy. Kids go in the bathroom and come back out, smell like weed and buy snacks. Hey man, someone left their drink in the bathroom. I realized that the guy entered before, never saw him come out or heard the door open. After the kids leave, check the bathroom. Single warm coffee on the sink. Freak out slightly. Ignore ghost coffee, leave the bathroom, and stress out in the back room for the rest of the shift. Question manager when he replaces me in the morning. The guy laughs a little, then gets a sad look. He's been working here for years, says that an old bum used to come around and eat our leftover food we would throw out at night. He would pick up garbage around the place and return. Says that one night, he got a coffee and went to the bathroom. Had a heart attack and died, no one found out till morning the next day. Says that he
still comes by to get his coffee, just leave it there till morning for him.
I never saw the ghost or whatever it was again while I worked there, thought it was cool to think of in my spare time.
For the last 3 years /X/ has been inspiring me to work the night shift at a rural gas station for maximum spooks. Would you recommend it? Post more stories by the way.
I would recommend it if you lived rural. City gas stations are not the safest place at night. If you do it, your social life may take a bit of a hit though. Mine did anyways. It was chill, and I had a lot of free time where I just played video games at work and got paid though. I was working the first few days of the night shift, being trained with an old night shift guy. The guy is an Indian right off the boat, very spiritual, believes the world is connected through spiritual energy and that you can read people's auras if you know how. Friendly guy, but everyone thinks he's nuts. Tells me all about how he's trying to achieve spiritual enlightenment, believes that serving people is the best way. Friendly guy, always joke around with him, call him stuff like master and sensei. First 2 days are chill, teaches me the job and talks about his spiritual chakra or whatever. Spends his breaks meditating. On the third day, he seems upset when he comes in. Ask what's wrong.
There is a bad aura at the store today, Anon. I shouldn't have come.
Slightly spooked, but whatever. He's upset the whole night, makes weird signs around the store and barely talks. Feel worried, don't want Master Bro to actually be a loon. At around 4 a.m., while he's on break, he suddenly leaves the back room. Apologizes and says he needs to get out. He goes to his car. I'm slightly upset, feel like he's trying to get out of work. Suddenly, there's a loud banging on the back door. We have a door in the back of the store. We used to use it for shipments, now it just sits there locked. Banging continues for about 15 minutes. Usually I would assume it's a kid, but after my partners freak out, not so sure. Keep the door closed. Recall on X that opening doors equals letting spirits in. After a while, the partner comes back, the banging stops. Acts like nothing happened at all, leaves me confused and anxious for the rest of the night. A few days later I asked him why he left that night and told him about the banging, and all he had to say was bad things come at night sometimes. And it's better I'm not around. I could never get a straight answer from him about it, and it always upset me.
Last year around May or so, I was at a gas station early enough in the morning that it was still dark out. I was going to pick up my brother and go visit my dad in the hospital who was having surgery for a brain tumor that morning. Not relevant to the story, except that I was already in a dark place mentally and emotionally. He would pass away in July. There was one other car at the station luckily, so it could have been creepier had I been completely alone there. Across the street from the station was a patch of woods. The small street corner wasn't lit, so you couldn't see past the line of trees. As I'm filling up my tank, I hear this blood-curdling scream coming from the woods. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before. It sounded at once like a man being murdered as well as a man in the act of murder. Terror and agony and rage all mixed into one. It lasted 5 to 10 seconds, but felt like minutes. There was silence for a moment, but then the scream started again. When it abated a second time, a man emerged from the woods in a hooded sweatshirt. This happened in Florida, so it was way too warm for a hoodie, even at that time. I couldn't see his face, but he strode across the street straight toward the gas station. It was a slow, steady gait. My tank wasn't full, but I hung up the nozzle and noped the fuck out of there. I sped off just as he got to the station. I swore it looked like he was heading straight for me. I told my brother, but no one else.
My job is pretty creepy. I work from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. at a really small gas station in the middle of nowhere. One night around 2 a.m. I'm counting change from the register. Drop a quarter. It bounces off the thing below the counter where the plastic bags hang. Rolls behind me. Hear the wood where the counter and floor meets. In the middle of counting, so I don't turn to pick it up. Right as I finish, I hear the very distinctive sound of change being placed on the counter. Turn around. No quarter on the floor behind me. It's instead laying up on the counter beside my phone. Motherfucking nope. Spend the rest of the shift loudly listening to happy people playing Minecraft. One other time I was scared as fuck to be there. 4 a.m. Taking some papers to the back office. Go through the little employee-only doorway. Get a spooky feeling as I turn to the right to go into the office. Hesitate a little. Decide to stop being a coward. Go in and set the paperwork on the desk. Turn around. The employee-only door is shut. I know I didn't close it. Legitimate fear that I wouldn't be able to open it or see something scary on the other side. Nearly hit myself with it, ripping it open as hard as I can. The store is empty. Go back behind the counter and watch funny videos until the manager came in at 6 a.m. This time I asked if I could watch the camera for a while because we were looking for a thief because we were losing bottles of wine and thought someone was taking them during the day. I instead rolled the camera around until that morning when I went to the back. The camera system is really old and has a really low frame rate. All I could see was myself stepping through the door and the door about midway through the swing then shut. Can't see anything, touch it or anything, and when I showed the manager she just said, "Yeah, that's kinda weird."
Summer 2009. I am 17 years old. Work at a gas station before school comes back. One of those dilapidated, 1,000-year-old gas stations that were bought out, I think, by a bigger gas company. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you ever see those gas stations with no name on the actual building but the canopy above the gas pumps have Valero or Citgo on it? It's like that. Work morning shift. Every now and then the night shift lady says Larry came in last night. Eventually assume Larry is a higher up that treats employees like shit because overnight lady looks like hell every time she talks about him. Talk to her about him to be polite, but I never catch anything because I'm half paying attention. Fall 2009. School's back, but I want to keep coasting on that sweet 8.45 an hour, so I take night shift. About 3 long, boring weeks in, man comes in. Fat, dressed in a nice tan suit, 10-gallon hat, bolo tie with a bull's skull. Imagine the rich Texan from The Simpsons. Walks in the store and immediately the lights flicker off for about 2 seconds. Lights come back on and he's staring at me. I say, old buildings, right? A rich Texan looks away and walks to a shelf. I think he's just being a dick. Walks from shelf to freezer just staring at things. Walks up to the counter. Glares at me with an upset, almost angry look. Is there anything I can help you with, sir? He continues to stare. I place my hand on the silent alarm, then back up a bit in case he takes a swing at me. After about a minute straight of silently staring, just walks out the store. Shrug it off and finish the night. As soon as I get home, I feel so sore like I was in a goddamn car accident. Fall asleep and wake up with the worst, most debilitating flu I've ever had. Try to call in. Dick-ass manager says I need to come in to talk about something. Apparently the camera was out that entire night, so that means I must have unplugged them to steal shit. Try to explain why the power outage knocked out the camera. Overnight lady chimes in.
See, he saw him. He saw Larry. He was wearing a tan suit.
The manager cut her off and fired me. Apparently letting a high schooler work overnight is a big no-no, and accusing me of stealing crossed the line. Shortly after I left, I had lunch with overnight lady. Talked to her about him, and according to her, Larry is the gas station's very first manager who was crushed under a car while changing its oil or something back when it doubled as an auto mechanic garage in the early 70s. Once the store was suited as a gas station, they had issues getting it up and running because of a series of electrical failures, one resulting in a fire that caused the place to be rebuilt from the foundation up. According to Larry's now passed away wife, he had a passion for cars and would have turned in his grave if anything were to happen to the garage. About 3 years after I left high school, the overnight lady named Gladys self-ended herself in the back stockroom with an extension cord. Living in a small town, the news spread like wildfire, and the place lost business and closed down.
Be me. Work in a gas station in South Montana. Night shift Wednesday. Literally 2 customers all night. Bored out of my mind. This guy turns up out of nowhere. No cars at the pump, no cars in the car park. This guy is about 5 foot, has a huge beard and stinks of finish. Asks me if I want to buy some of his spare dishwasher. I say no. He thanks me and leaves. Comes back in 2 hours. So my friend, are you sure about that dishwasher? I say no, I don't even question where the fuck the dishwasher is and why the fuck he's trying to sell me one. Okay, that's fine. So does your gas taste nice? If so, I'll take some. At this point, I'm freaked out. I don't know how to deal with people like this. Tell his the gas has run out. Okay, I'll just take some gum then. Give him the gum and tell him I'm closing. He sprints out the main doors, across the road and into the woods screaming. I had 5 hours left on my shift too. I spent the whole time afraid he'd come back. I rang my boss and he just asked if he had a gun, which he didn't from what I could see, and he just laughed and said, "Hey, it's the night shift, what do you expect?"
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember that all videos have been archived on the Odyssey page.